First thing you need is a lathe, and you need a mandrel system. This particular one has a Morse taper, and it's a 1/4 inch diameter shaft, used to make 7mm diameter pins, I guess you should say. And you've got the different bushings that are on the mandrel, and I'll tell you why the bushings are there later, but it helps you to size the pen to the right diameter. And then a nut on the end that holds everything in place. And you need, for tools, you're going to need chisel, different types of chisels different people use. These are all chisels that, the smaller diameter, and I can see, different people have different preferences for grinds. This one's more of a fingernail grind, and this is more of a straight grind. Now what about your supplies? Where do you get them? I just got an order, came in yesterday from Penn State Industries. And I should lay this catalog back there. Penn State. Yeah. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to kind of take you through the steps and explain some things along the way. Just to make a standard slimline pen, and I've got just a plain piece of wood. This piece of wood happens to be one that I have no clue what it is. So we'll have fun trying to figure it out. So I want to start with a piece of wood. Gary, would you hand me a Sharpie that's back there? I'm going to start with a piece of wood, and what I want to do is, of course, the pen has a top and a bottom. Thank you. And what I want to do, this is inside each pen, there's a brass tube, and that's the center of the pen, and that's what fits over the sleeve here. So what I have to do is cut this piece to length, and then insert the brass tube, drill the hole, and insert the brass tube. And as you'll see, this doesn't take very long. I'm going to step over to the next step is to glue it in. Now I'm using the super glue. You can also use epoxy, but it takes longer. And what I like to do is get a nice bead of glue on the leading edge and then a little bit along the sides, because this is more glue than it needs. As I insert this, I want to make sure the tube goes in far enough so it's just below the surface. I've got a tool here, which is what we call an end mill. And the shaft is the same diameter as the inside diameter of the brass tube, so that it'll clean out any glue that might have hardened inside there. And then on the surface here, on the face, is a mill that you can use to mill the wood. Because it's important to pay attention to your match lines, which I have right here. So I'm going to unscrew the part. I've got plenty of spacers in here. And you just push one piece on, you put a spacer between, second piece on, and then just the rest of it is spacers just to fill. So I don't like to have this knurled nut right close to the piece that I'm turning, because it doesn't give you room for the tool. And I do tighten this snug, but I don't over tighten it. I'm careful. I give this a little bit of a pop to make sure that my Morse taper is seated. And the idea is it'll turn. When I bring my tool rest up, I always eyeball it against the back edge of the lathe to make sure I'm square. And I also do this to see if I'm hitting anything. So you should do that with every turning project, is make sure you're not hitting anything. Check my speed. I keep it on the high speed of my lathe, which is 1700 RPM. When I get going, once I get the corners rounded off, I'm going to speed up to the full speed. And my tool of choice, like I say, right or wrong, this is the tool I like to use. And we'll go ahead and get started on this. At first, you're going to see that the piece of wood, I'm going to get some catches and so forth. That can be fixed by I'll be adjusting the knob a little bit, and also once I pick up the speed a little bit. But it's also about the angle I hold the tool and my approach to the piece of wood. I always like to leave my wood just a little above the bushings, actually for two reasons. Number one is I know my bushings have seen a lot of sanding use, and I know they've been reduced a little bit because of sanding. But secondly, because sanding will reduce the wood down to the bushing. It's a matter of taking your finger and and just working it out. The next grits don't take that long, really. As you're turning it, you can kind of see marks and things that you're trying to work out. Now, there's a number of different finishes you can use.
I've never done it.
I can leave this unfinished. That's nice. I can use wax, which is nice. But I like this crystal coat. It's a protectant. It's, best I can tell, a mixture between shellac and wax. The shellac will give it the protection, and the wax will give it the nice sheen. And some people put it on without it turning, and some people, I use it steady step, and while it's turning, I'll just put a little bit on, you'll see the wood will transform right in front of you. Just like that. And then I'll leave it on for just a second, and then I'll come back and I'll put a little pressure on it. The process, at this point now, you got to press the parts together. So let's go ahead and pull the pin out. Always paying attention yet to which end of the pin goes towards the other. So I always, when I do this, I always like to just make sure I hold this so I don't lose track of where it is. Even when I take it out, I like to set them down so that they're in the same position. And because I have a tendency to lose parts, I always put the parts back on the mandrel before I go to the next step. Now, I will tell you that I have one of these pen presses, and it works okay. But I really love to use my vise on my bench because you got all this control. With this here, you've just got the one lever. But for the purposes of demonstration, we're going to use this. And I think most people should clamp it to the table, but I'm going to skip that step. And so I can keep things straight. The part that I need to, the part that I can't tell which end is which, I'm going to go ahead and stick the pocket clip on it right away so then I'm committed. So the pocket clip is, as you see, it has a round hole in it, and there's a small brass piece that will end up pressing into the end of the brass tube. So we have to press this in. Okay, that's another reason why you have a brass tube, is because you have to press the parts together. And it doesn't take a lot of force. And now I know which end of my pen is which, so there. So we press that in. Actually, what I probably could have and should have done is take a look at the wood grain and try to cover up the least attractive part of the top. You know, if there's a particular grain you don't like, or if there's a particular grain that you want to show, I pay attention to that when I put the end in. But then on the other end, I got to press the tip in. So once again, adjust this out a little bit. I like the wood grain to more or less match, and that's pretty close. So there you go. Rather than me stand here and talk, which I've already talked too long, is I'd like you guys to start thinking about which lady you want to stand beside and make a pen.
And then you can very tiny, very small amounts you can go back. Right? And you really want to play with it, find a really sharp point. You got a lot of steel there, and you find a really sharp point. You're right. You're going to have enough holes like that. A lot of pressure. And a lot of room for other diameter. Getting to that $29 policy. Yeah.